Greetings, my friends. My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach and author of the wonderful little book, A Life to Die For. I'm also one of the co-authors in the best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care. Welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. Today, we mark episode 214, and our title today is called Magical Healing. Now, the world is full of all kinds of challenges today that have the effect of increasing stress and anxiety in almost everyone's life. Everywhere we turn, people are suffering in many different ways, and it may leave the impression that life is generally becoming less enjoyable. But in the midst of all this, there are many people who manage to rise above the suffering and have fulfilling and empowering lives. How are they able to do it? What makes them so special? There are many answers to these questions, but one idea seems almost inevitable to conclude. Somehow these people connect in with the magical power of healing, so that stress and anxiety literally seem to melt away, so that they then are able to travel through life with grace and ease. And somehow they manage to heal in ways that most of us have never thought possible. Well, for this episode of Life Mastery TV, I've invited back the delightful and knowledgeable Dr. Dolores Fazzino, I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, to share some of her brilliance and enthusiasm about the amazing power of healing. As a nurse practitioner, medical intuitive, and energy whisperer, well, I love that term, with over 40 years in the healthcare industry, Dolores is the perfect person to share this wonderful and amazing information. So please join me in welcoming Dolores Fazzino to the program. Welcome, Dolores. I am so glad you're able to join me again today.
Well, thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here, and you pronounced my name beautifully. You did a good job, so kudos to you.
Excellent. Yeah. I've had enough practice. You think I'd get it right?
Well, you know what? It's just like it's no big deal. It's just like you mastered it. So there you go.
So I think one thing I would like to say, I mentioned the Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Healthcare, and I know you were a co-author on some of those books as well. Can you share a little bit with us about what you wrote about in those books that you participated in?
Oh gosh, you're triggering my memory a little bit. Well, I talked about more like trusting your intuition, but also to really be true to yourself and be honest, because I think what's happened in our world today is that we have given our power away to something outside of ourselves ever since we were born into this earth plane.
Right.
And that's just the programming that's here on earth. And, we come in as these pure essences and beings, and then we're molded into what society deems as normal or culturally correct. And when in essence, it's not. It's a way of controlling the masses on a real covert level. So, and, slowly but surely over time, especially in the first 10 years of our lives, we give that innocence and that power away to something outside of ourselves, because we're told that, you have to trust what's outside of yourself instead of coming within and trusting that inner voice and inner knowledge. And so what I'm seeing, in the world right now is a huge opportunity for people to embrace that and create a renaissance with that within themselves. We're at a point in our society's evolution where things aren't working the way that they used to be because of all the way we were controlled or, told that we needed to think about things a certain way. And, I think without getting really political or anything, I think this whole COVID thing was a gift, because we really got to see how big of a dichotomy there was there with, following the herd versus doing your own thing, what I'm saying, and trusting that inner wisdom.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to speak from my own personal experience, because I was in healthcare and I lived it. I got to, luckily for me, I was in a position where, for those that don't know this, I have a coaching practice, but I also still assist in surgery on surgical procedures as an assistant surgeon. So I am not in the forefront, but I am in the forefront, but I don't take care of patients one-on-one out in the wards. I'm there in the operating room across from the surgeon doing the operation. And
Yeah, that's
so,
intense.
oh, it's very intense. Let me
Yeah.
tell you, you, you have to have a good sense of humor a lot of the time.
Right, right.
But you know the point I'm trying to make is that I got to witness how people give their power away, and trust things that their gut is telling them don't do it. They ignore it, and then they live to pay the price later because of science and evidence based, which I think is a bunch of BS.
Right. Well, we have
After
what I call today is science with a dollar sign replacing the S. And
that's a
or
good one,
some
David.
people like to use the phrase science TM, trademark. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
You know,
unfortunate, but it's true that while there are many, many wonderful scientists out there who really are doing legitimate scientific work, many groups of scientists have been bought off and are doing the bidding of the people with the money.
oh,
And it's
without a doubt.
unfortunate, but that's just the way it is.
And so, I'm going to circle back to our discussion here is that when we've given our power away to something outside of ourselves, that's when you start going down rabbit holes. Now, I'm going to just back up a little bit. Health and wellness, you are sovereign, you're a sovereign being. You have everything you need within you to be healthy, whole, and complete. Yet we fragment parts of ourselves out to the external. We get trapped in a different dimension and it just gets really fragmented. So it's very difficult to hear that inner wisdom because we're being distracted by so much stuff.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what's one to do? It's just like, so how do we work with that? You start by coming back to self. You start by having a relationship with yourself because let's face it, the longest relationship you're ever going to have in your life is the one you have with yourself. I know that's hard to believe for some people, but it's the truth, bottom
Right.
line.
There's no divorces in that department.
Well, you can, but you divorce yourself, and what good is that?
That's right. Yeah. All of what you've been saying, I think, is highly relevant. You talked first of all about truth and speaking truth and owning truth and living in your own truth. I think that's where this began. And we have been kind of tricked, if you like, by society to look for truth outside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And now we are seeing, well, I mean, I think we've been able to see these consequences for years, but more and more people are starting to wake up to this truth, to the awareness that the more we give ourselves up, the more we lose ourselves in the process. And
Exactly.
when we lose ourselves, there's nothing but misery and unhappiness and resentment and anger and everything else on the other side of that divide. So the only way to heal all those things is to come back to that truth. And that truth, it's something that may be hard to return to because you are so habituated now to behave in a certain way. So giving up the old ways and being able to truthfully say in your heart, I love you, but I really don't give a shit what you think about me. That is one of the hardest things for people to do because the truth is our ego mind does care what other people think. Mm-hmm. And does want to continue to please people because that is the myth that we've created in order to keep the peace, not rock the boat, not make waves, all the rest of that stuff. Those are the storylines that we live by. And the moment you decide to step back into the truth of who you are, you realize all of that stuff is just illusion and it's falsehood. So I'm glad you brought that up because it's really, really important. And it comes down to this difference between doing, getting out there and just doing, or simply being who we are.
David, well said. And, what I've witnessed too, and I speak in, from my healthcare experience is like how many, we're in a healthcare crisis basically right now. Okay. The problem is not that we don't have hospital beds. We have plenty of hospital beds. We just don't have the staff to man the hospital beds. That's what it's kind of flipped from what was going on during COVID. And there was like what we call the mass exodus because people were sick and tired of, the working conditions and giving their power away to the institution. The institution even now mandates that you need to stay and work. And it's just like, no, you don't have to. You're a sovereign being. It's the safest time in your career history as a healthcare professional to speak up, because what are they going to do? Fire you? They need
right.
every man on deck. So please
right.
grow a spine and speak up for yourself, because I can't do that for you. And I empower the people that I work with, because I work with a lot of younger people like 20s, 30s, and 40s that have, they're into obedience. They give their power away to the and it's just like I pulled a couple of them aside and said, you know what, it's okay for you to say no. You don't have to say yes. And the thing is, and I explained why it's okay for you. You're a sovereign being, but not only that, you say yes when you don't want to do it. So you're building up resentment. You're going to get resentful. You're going to start stressing your body out because you don't want to be there. You're going to get fatigued. You're going to get sick, and then you're going to be out and you'll injure yourself or something. And the hospital's not going to give a damn.
That's right.
That's how they do it. I said, so please. So I role played with them one time. There was 4 or 5 of them. And I said, well, Joni, can you stay extra today? No, I can't. Okay, great. And so we went around the circle, and it was really empowering because I don't think they never gave themselves permission to say no.
Right.
It's really
let's face it.
embedded.
Yeah, let's face it. We're indoctrinated to do what we're told from the moment we're born.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And any child who resists that feels the full brunt of the law, so to speak.
Yep.
At the end of a paddle or a switch or a brush or some other device that is designed to inflict punishment. And who wants to be punished? Nobody likes to be punished. Everybody would rather just get along and do what's right. So we say, okay, well, if I say no, mommy's going to spank me or whatever, I better say yes. And then we get into that habit, and it just becomes it becomes rote. We don't even think about it once we reach about 15 or 16 years old. And it's not until we're maybe in our 30s or 40s that we start to question that.
Oh, absolutely. And, I feel it's so important just to lead by example, but also it's about setting boundaries.
That's right.
Huge setting boundaries, because how many of us don't know where we end and something else begins? I think a lot of people, especially people coming to the platform of the wellness universe, are probably an empath, intuitive, or highly sensitive person.
Right.
Okay. With that, I'm one, David. You are one too. I know that. It's just like sometimes we don't know where we end and something else begins because our boundaries are so nebulous and intertwined. It's very difficult to discern because we were never taught that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think what happens for many of us, we're born that way. So even when we're in utero, we've been taking on energetic stuff that's not ours and processing it as ours, even though it's not ours. And so there's that unconscious component that's going on. And I know for me personally, the first 30 years of my life were a hellhole because I was depressed, miserable, and it's just like I couldn't understand why I was feeling the way I was until, unraveling the next 30 years, and I got all the answers pretty much and worked through that. So it's just like, oh my God, I wish I knew what I knew now when I was younger. And it's like, what's important is to share this information with the younger people so they don't go batshit crazy through their lives and hopefully get a little more grounded in reality so they can move beyond surviving to thriving. I mean, it's just madness.
It is. And the other thing I'd like to say about boundaries, Well, first, there's several things. I mean, we could have a whole conversation about boundaries because it's a very, very rich and powerful topic. But just to be really brief, it's important to be clear where our boundaries are in any given moment. But it's also important to be clear that our boundaries can shift and change from one moment to the next. So while I might say no to something right now, 5 minutes from now, I might change my mind, and maybe I am an enthusiastic yes about that. So we have to be open to the possibility that boundaries can shift and change. But the other thing that I would like to say is that sometimes we don't know where a boundary is until we cross it. And so it's important. We have to test boundaries.
True.
We have to test them. Sometimes people will not express their boundaries. So sometimes I might get in a little bit too close and too close and too close, and all of a sudden an altercation occurs because the other person isn't willing to say, okay, that's close enough,
Yeah.
And so we have to be willing to honor our own boundaries and be willing to test our own boundaries, but we also have to be willing to challenge the boundaries of others, because otherwise we're not being true to ourselves.
True.
And so that's what I want to say about that.
Yeah, and I'm going to elaborate on that too. And it's just like also being aware of where other people's boundaries are too. And I'm going to share a really funny story. This, God, this is so funny. Back last March, I was speaking at an event in San Diego, and that morning, I needed to take my cat to the vet. Now, Gracie, I had just adopted at the time. She was about 4 months old, and she was about 2 years old. And she's like this little pint-sized, 6-pound cat. And I needed to take her to the vet because she was so stressed out. And so I had my own agenda, and I had to, herd a cat, put her in her carrier, and take her to the vet. Well, she was having nothing to do with this. I was chasing her around. I picked her up. She actually filleted open my hand.
Oh my God.
Yeah, with her claw. And then she was so mad at me, she peed all over me. So she was setting a boundary.
Right.
I wasn't honoring it. Okay.
Yeah.
So because I had my own agenda, and I was plowing through because I needed to do X, Y, and Z before I went to speaking. And I'm thinking to myself, whoa. And of course, the topic of conversation that day was boundaries.
Yeah. So you had a live story to share in the moment.
Live story. I lived it. But it's just like you never really think about it. You think boundaries as far as you setting boundaries so other people can't come in. But what about that other person? She was obviously setting a boundary with me, and I chose not to listen.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's something to think about because, it's full circle. It's being respectful of yours, but also respectful of others as well.
It's funny that you should mention this. I have a dog. I don't have a cat, but I have conversations with my dog as if it were a really highly intelligent, like, human being. Mm-hmm. So, I will tell him, I'll speak to him directly. I'll say, okay, tomorrow we have to go to the vet. So I want you to know that right now. And he kind of looked at me like, what the hell are you talking about? It's kind of funny, but I think it does help. Yeah. He knows that I'm communicating from a place of love, and that whatever I'm doing is coming from a place of love. And that's the important thing. So you brought up the subject of cat, and I'm bringing up dogs. Well, dogs and cats are people too,
Absolutely. Come on. They don't
necessarily communicate to us in the same way, but they are sentient beings and highly intelligent beings at that.
Very much so. And you know what? They actually communicate telepathically, which is a highly evolved form of communication.
Right.
I don't know if you ever had this experience, but as a young child, I really didn't say much. It's like I would telepathically communicate, and I couldn't understand why other people didn't do that.
Uh-huh.
And so when I was realizing, okay, I must be really odd or something, it's just like, it just changed things. And then the other thing that happened to me when I was younger too, it's like I'm very capable of being in multiple places at the same time. And this is just an example. So you're driving down the freeway in your car, you're in your back seat with your parents, and then you look over to the other car and you're in their back seat looking at you. That type of stuff. I thought everybody did this, but apparently not. So I was like the joke was on me, I guess. I don't know, like wherever I came
Well,
from.
that's a
We were doing that.
very interesting experience. I haven't heard anybody share that one before, but that's beautiful, actually. That's kind of, it's a form of projection, I guess. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's almost like shape shifting. That's the only
yeah,
thing I could think
right.
about. But but I found that very interesting because for me, that was like I realized, oh my God, people are not they don't do this. So the whole telepathic communication thing is, it's a very highly evolved form of communication. And I really think, when we look at some of our youngsters who have been diagnosed with ADHD or autism, whatever, I really feel that they're highly evolved and the communication skills for them to communicate are more telepathic because I worked with some of those kids before too. And if you project pictures of what you're trying to explain to them, and they'll project pictures back to you. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that's cool stuff for sure. Well, we're a little bit off the topic of healing,
Yes,
but
we
that's
are.
okay.
But it's
It's all good because, we talked about boundaries, and boundaries is a form of healing,
true.
obviously, and because it's a form of owning our sovereignty and our self authority, if you like, and this place where I am who I am, and you are who you are, and yes, on some level we are one, but for this time being, we are sharing a unique experience where we are independent individuations of spirit, if you like, on the planet.
Very
So
true.
let's learn to live together, and let's find a way to reduce the stress. And one of the ways, and you've already hit on this that I think is so beautiful, one of the ways we can do that is to stop giving our power away and start to reclaim that power and become true to who we really are. Because the moment you can do that, I believe that your moment of ultimate freedom is the day you can say, I really don't care what you think about me. If you can say that truthfully in your heart,
Hmm.
I think you're going to just feel all kinds of stress and stuff fall away.
True.
What do you think about that?
Well, I believe that's true. And it's like, how do we get to that point? Sometimes it's just like people say, well, how do you get there? I kind of look at, situations that trigger you as gifts.
Right.
Okay. Because the thing is, your triggers are gonna help you immensely move and reclaim your power, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because say you get triggered by something, either your spouse or your kids or your work people or whatever's or even something in the universe. When you get triggered, it's just like I invite you, instead of reacting, just pull yourself back and just say, just ponder it. It's just like, I'm really feeling triggered right now. I'm not really sure why. Let me just sit with this for a moment before I say something. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes by sitting with it, you could feel things in your body and feel like, maybe there's a knot in your stomach, or, you're getting a headache, or, whatever sensation is happening in your body. Is focus on that. Just go to that area and just embrace it. It's a very shamanic, but embracing that area as if it was your favorite pet or your favorite loved one, and just loving and nurturing that, because this is a part of you, and it's coming through your body to let you know that it needs to be accepted, loved, appreciated, and reintegrated into us. So it's calling back parts of ourselves. And I'm going to just elaborate on that further, is that when a lot of times when something traumatic happens to us, parts of us get fragmented off and we're caught in that time and place way back when, and if you take this concept on top of it, is that time itself is an illusion here on earth. Okay. Everything is happening all at the same time, basically.
Right.
Past, present, and future is no longer linear. It's actually going vertically. So it's all happening simultaneous, past, present, future. not only this lifetime, but lifetimes in the past and lifetimes in the future. Everything is happening right here, right now. So if there's something from your childhood that you're being triggered by, you've got a part of yourself that's kind of lost, a piece of yourself that's lost in time. And sometimes when it's been a real painful thing, the last thing you want to do is like, go there and experience it or just even think about it. We are masters of trying to prevent ourselves and resisting from going there. But yet the golden nugget is embracing that and bringing that back home to you so it could reintegrate. So, say maybe something happened in your childhood. We've all had our experiences. Trust me. Nobody gets away, with a childhood that's free of any type of drama. I hate to tell you that, but it's the truth. And if you think you had a perfect one, I invite you to look a little further. But anyway,
and you know what? I think that's a true statement. And at the same time, I can still hold in my heart that my experience, my journey is a perfect journey for me.
absolutely.
Even though there may have been some very unpleasant experiences along the way. Unpleasant only in the sense that I didn't enjoy them for one reason or another.
Yeah.
But when I look back at them from a different perspective, from a different time point, from a different, whatever you want to call it, I can always find a gift in every single experience that's ever happened in my life. And that I may not see the gift in the moment that I'm experiencing it. I may be saying to myself, oh, thank God, another fucking opportunity for growth. And I might be making ridiculous statements like that. And but I'm not enjoying it in the moment. And I may never actually come to the place of enjoying it, but I can always look back and find a gift in that experience.
Oh,
The other thing I want to say is, you talk about, fragmenting yourself and pushing parts aside and stuff. To me, that is really all about creating shadow aspects of ourselves.
mm-hmm.
And I do a lot of shadow work with people. And one of the secrets, I think, of shadow work is not necessarily going back and reliving the experience, but going back and observing the experience, seeing yourself as that young child and observing the experience. And from the place of your loving self now, coming up with healing mechanisms that can help that child to release the energy or whatever, so that you yourself are no longer fragmented. And then you can embrace that broken part back into yourself.
You were spot on with that, David. And the other thing that is so true, and it's observing, but it's also not observing, it's witnessing.
Right.
It's witnessing that event, because I think for some people, and I know for myself too, it's like, the beauty of this type of work, it happens almost instantaneously. It's not about reliving anything bad or anything. It's observing and witnessing, and then coming as the adult who you are to look at, if it's an inner child thing, shadow work or whatever, and just embracing that, because whatever that situation is, and if it shows up as a somatic thing in your body, meaning like you have pain or whatever, it's about embracing all of that, maybe sending the violet flame of Saint Germain through all of that as well too, and just to transmute and transform and transcend it. But it's like getting to the point where it's like you're able to embrace it and reincorporate it energetically into who you are. And it's so interesting. I know from my experience and working, personally, and with working with clients, it's like it's a beautiful thing to witness a part of yourself coming back so you could be more complete and whole. And it's really interesting because when you have that experience, all of a sudden you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm grounded. I could feel really grounded. It's like landed, and it's like you get another part of yourself back. So you're becoming more complete and whole, as time progresses. And I love what you're saying about, our journey. So true. And it's like when you're in the middle of going through your stuff, it's like sometimes you don't realize the gifts that are there until you're on the other side of it. And then you could look back at what you went through to get to where you're at. And it's just like, then you have your epiphanies sometimes, and like, now I understand.
Yeah.
And so, it's a beautiful thing to witness that within yourself, but also to witness that in others as well,
Yeah, that's right. It's beautiful for sure. I'd just like to remind the folks that are here on the live presentation, once again, if you have comments or questions, please feel free to post them in the public chat there on the screen, and we will do our best to respond to you as we progress. Okay. Something else I wanted to say about that, Dolores. People need to be gentle with themselves, and this is something that I have seen this happen many, many times in different groups and different kinds of formats where I have been coaching people, where somebody I'm working with seems to be coming back to the same core wound over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And then judging themselves because they're, oh my God, here I am again. That's kind of the reaction. My reminder to people like that is, look, there may be a lot of wounding that happened here. And you may not be able to deal with it all in one single pass. So be gentle with yourself, loving with yourself, and see what new gift you can find the second time, or the third time, or the 15th time that you come back to this. Whatever you do, don't judge yourself for spending too much time on one particular wound, okay?
And David, you're spot on with that too, because it's like, the metaphor of the onion and just peeling layers off. It's just like, sometimes we have a core issue, but there's themes and variations that we've experienced. And, when you're on the periphery, okay, you have three different situations that may not look similar at all, but when you matrix them down and get to the core issue, it's the same core issue.
Right.
So we get a lot of, I believe that when we are born, before we're born, basically, we pick out what we're going to work on in this lifetime.
Yep.
We got a hand of cards we're going to be playing in this lifetime. And, you're looking at your hand of cards and you're like, oh shit, I didn't agree to this. And what the hell is that? It's like,
well, when
okay,
you're dealt the cards, in the spirit world, you're dealt the cards face down.
No, I don't think so. You get to
well,
see them.
it seems that way when you get into the physical world. You say, I don't remember any of this.
Yeah, but the thing is, you get this whopping dose of amnesic type of whatever, so you don't remember anything. And the gift is you trying to create this, coming to a place where you have free will to have, and choices and stuff like that. So, I think, when you look at people in the world, why is it some people who are so maimed are the most successful, or the ones that have the most tragedy in their life are so successful? And I believe what happens is this. It's like, yes, they're dealt this hand of cards, and it's choice. They could either choose to do nothing or be a victim, or choose to do something. It's a choice.
Right. Yeah.
It's not going to change that you're missing a limb, or you're deaf or mute or whatever. It's just you're taking that and working with it. So I love to witness stories like that because they're so inspiring.
I agree. Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, this is amazing. The capability of people, deciding for themselves and making choices. And, for some people, they think choice is like, well, I have no choice. Well, you always have a choice. it's, you could do nothing, be a victim, or, do something.
Well, I think whenever somebody says I have no choice, what they're really saying is I am choosing not to choose.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're saying.
True that.
I am choosing not to observe all the options available to me. That's another possibility. And it's the same thing with people who say, well, I can't. There's really only two meanings for I can't. And one is either I don't know how right now, or I don't want to. Those are really the only two choices. Well, which one is it? If you don't know how, you can always learn if that's really what you want to do. But if you don't want to, just be honest about it. Don't say I can't. Say that's not something I want to do. Okay, fair. That's part of the boundary thing we were talking about before.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, we just lived through the holiday season and stuff like that, and for some people, that's like a minefield.
Right. Exactly.
So the thing is, it's like, it's the perfect time to set boundaries. But, going back to obligations, it's just like when you're asked to do something, is it a hell yes, or you don't want to do it, but you decide to keep the peace. So, you do it and then you become resentful. So this is where I tell people, there's parties and stuff like that. If you're not aligned with going, don't go. It's okay to say no. But it's like, oh, I don't want to do it. It's like, no. It's just like, sorry. For me, who's an empath, intuitive, and highly sensitive person, if I'm not feeling it, I just don't do it. It's just like, if it's too people-y out there for me, I don't go. It's like sometimes that you need to protect your energy field, or you're not feeling really up and alive, or in a good space. I'm saying, what, self-care for me is saying no.
Right.
And I'm honoring that. And self-care for me is staying home, and I'm honoring that. And so,
well, I love your phrase, too people-y.
oh yeah, it's too people-y out there for me. It's like,
I've never heard people used as an adjective. That's great.
well, you're welcome to use that, but it's the truth. Sometimes.
Well, I'm an introvert too, so.
Well,
Yeah.
no, but you go out in a crowd, and it's just like, for me, a fun time on the weekend is not going to Disneyland.
Exactly.
Because it's like there's too much energy flying around, and when you're, very sensitive, you feel everything, and I'm like, it's too overwhelming.
That's
So,
right. Yeah.
this is about learning about who you are, honoring that, and, without a doubt, claiming your sovereignty with that.
Right. I want to get back to this idea of being versus doing.
Oh, yes.
I mentioned it a while back, and I know it's something that's relevant to you.
Yes, it is.
And it's definitely relevant to this concept of healing. So
Yeah.
why don't you share your perspective on those two modes of being, and why you think those are so important?
So, I got this download probably about 15 years ago about, how we are handling society and stuff like that. And, we could put it into two columns and label the top doing versus being. So let's talk about doing for a moment. In our society, we're always told that you have to be in motion in order to be productive. Did you ever hear that when you're a kid? Don't sit around. You're being lazy. You're not being productive.
That's right.
Well, that's what we used to hear. Okay. And then a lot of people get motivated. So when you also think about doing, it's just like you're always trying to figure something out. So you're more in your head. Okay. You're thinking, analyzing, how do I make something happen? It's constantly in motion. And when you're in your head and you're thinking and you're constantly in motion, you're sometimes, you're in the past, you're in the future. Rarely are you in the present moment. Okay.
Right.
That's the key thing to remember. You're in your head. It's more about trying to make something happen. So there's a lot of force and pushing. It's also about looking at corporate America now, and this is where their mode is. And thank God that's starting to shift and crumble. Well, it's crumbling, so it's shifting and creating something new. But what happens is that they're trying to get more and more and more out of a person when there's nothing more to give. So people are continuously on this doing mobile of doing, and they're getting more stressed, more fatigued, more resentful. Guess what? They get sick, and they create problems for themselves. Right. So that's doing. Now let's look at being. Now being is more of a flow. It's allowing. It is heart-centered. It's more of being, when you're heart-centered, you're in your body, you're in the present moment. Mm-hmm. You have to be in your body to be in the present moment. And I say that twice because that's important. thing to note. You can't be in your head and be in the present moment. So how do we get into the present moment? You connect with nature. You do mindful activities. And mindful activity could stem from doing meditation to just petting your favorite pet, to gardening, going outside for a walk, grounding yourself so you're in your physical body. But it's about slowing down. It's about allowing. It's about receiving. It's about being able to connect with that inner wisdom within yourself. That's the only way that could happen, is when you're in your body, folks. It doesn't happen when you're in your mind. And I think we could all
It's about stopping the motion.
Exactly. And so what happens is this: when you are in the being mode, you're in your body. I think the heart space is more of being in your body. And when you're grounded through your heart, you're in your body. You are also in the present moment. You can feel your emotions. You have to be in your body to feel.
Yeah.
When you're in your head, you think you feel.
Yeah. In your head, you think your emotions. In your body, you feel them.
Exactly. Big distinction. Okay.
That's right.
So, and you have to remember, everything is energy. Your emotions, your thoughts, your ideas, who you are as a physicality, it's all energy. So when you don't experience those emotions, you put them on the shelf for later, or you ignore them, or, you stuff them. It's like, it's still energy that's there that hasn't been experienced. Because when you experience your emotions, you dissipate the energetic component to it, and it doesn't get stuck anywhere. It kind of flows right through you. When you resist your emotions, okay, and we label them good or bad, they're just emotions, they're expressions.
That's right.
And, when we partially experience an emotion, it's like you put the brakes on, the energy ball's still there. So what do we try to do? We try to resist it. We try to stuff it. We try to pretend it's not there. And what do they say? Whatever you resist persists. Yes. Guess what? And when too much of that starts happening, it crosses over into your physical body, and then you start having problems. So
one teaching I learned a while back that really resonated for me: when it comes to emotions, you have two choices. And one choice is to express the emotions, express. That is to push them out, to allow them to move out, right? And the other choice is, whether it's conscious or unconscious. If it's conscious, you can suppress the emotions. If it's unconscious, you can repress the emotions. Either way, if you choose the latter side of the coin, you get to keep it. You get to keep it. You get to hang on to it, and it finds its way into your tissues.
Yes, it does.
And then what you end up with is issues in the tissues.
I love it. I love it. This is great. I might have to use that.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is something that we need to do at the beginning. First of all, most of us, men and women alike, are told not to express our emotions. Now, women are told not to express anger, and men are told not to express fear or sadness. So we end up with this really dysfunctional society where one half of the society is expressing the stuff that the other side is not allowed to express. And that's where we think of, this is what women are and this is what men are. Not at all. All of us are deeply feeling human beings. And if we give ourselves permission, we can express and experience every single emotion under the sun. All right? And that is for men and women alike. And just because your sadness, let's say, happens to bring up tears, that doesn't mean you're weak or effeminate or anything like that. It just means you're feeling an emotion and your body is expressing it. That's what it means. So give yourself permission. Remember, as part of that being in nature, as part of that being centered in your heart, give yourself permission to feel your feelings and then to allow them to just pass through.
Absolutely. Because when you allow them to pass through, I kind of love the analogy that I tell people. It's like it's a bubble of energy, the emotion.
Yeah.
When you take a step into it, yes, you're going to experience it, but you take another step and you're almost to the other side of it.
Yeah.
It's like experiencing that and it just kind of dissipates. I don't know what your childhood was like growing up, David, but for me, I grew up in a childhood of a mother who was a daughter of an alcoholic. So we weren't allowed to feel. Okay. So, I mean, but and it's kind of an oxymoron because here you have a child who's an empath, intuitive, and highly sensitive person. My mom's MO was like, ignore it, it'll go away. When I was ignoring it, it got bigger. And I
Mm-hmm.
used to tell her, I said, Mom, it's not going away, it's getting bigger.
Right.
So it was just like that was an insightful thing that I didn't catch until in my, the second 30 years of my life. And I'm like, oh, yeah, now it's
Exactly.
making complete sense.
Right. Well, and Dolores, I think that what many people don't realize is a big cause of stress is the refusal to experience and feel our feelings.
Oh my God. Yes.
Imagine how
Yes.
much energy it takes to suppress that stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, getting back to the being versus doing. So, and that with the, this all kind of comes together because it's not a this or that. You need both. Okay. But our society is so programmed into looking at doing first and trying to create stuff. And I'm just going to invite people to look at it from a different perspective. What if you went to being first? You ground yourself, you get in touch with your body, you get in touch with your emotions, you get in touch with your higher wisdom. This is where your intuition comes in. You have to be in your body and you're kind of doing your thing. And it's like, I know for me, when I'm in the being state, I get my best ideas. Okay.
Absolutely.
It's almost like I'm having a meeting with the boardroom of me. And it's like
Nice.
they're downloading the information, and then you take that information and go into doing. I call it divine doing because you're not spinning your wheels trying to make something happen. It's like they're giving you the information and the next step. You just go and do, and then you come back. It's like an infinity sign. You're going back and forth and back and forth. And an infinity sign, it's constantly in motion unless you get stuck on one pole and then it gets lopsided and then life just goes to hell. And then, you're just going back and forth. So when you're able to go like this, get your divine download, go on to divine being, divine download, divine being. Life is very magical. You actually get more done in a shorter period of time. You have more energy, and being is not laziness. This is where you are actually, being creative, getting your ideas. It's like I've gotten some amazing things, and I'm just going to share a personal story for my life because in my 30s I had done the doing thing, was highly successful, and it was successful, short-lived success. Number one, let me tell you, it won't be lasting. And then I ended up getting sick and getting an autoimmune condition. Okay, so that wasn't fun. So people would say, "Oh, what are you going to do next, Dolores?" I said, "Well, I'm going to, being an entrepreneur and entrepreneurial and stuff like that, I decided that I needed to do things different. So I implemented doing it the way that I just shared with you. I went into meditation. I got really serious with my meditation, going within myself type of thing, and just really got to be friends with my higher self and my intuition and trust that 100% no matter what the heck is happening around me. And because that's how you create certainty in an uncertain world. So I would get the divine download. So one day, this is a real funny story. I'm on my way to take another cat of mine to the vet. This is like Max the cat, Max the naughty boy. And Max was another one that didn't like to be herded, but I was able to get him into the carrier. And for people who know me, I am not a morning person. It's like if I don't have to get up and do stuff, I'm usually in bed till like 10 and 11 o'clock because I stay up late. And so brought him to the vet at 6:30 in the morning, and then driving home, there's a sign, garage sale, and my car is like going in one direction, the garage sale, and I'm like, no, I want to go home to bed, no. And the garage, it was pulling me, and I was like, all right, I'm going, and I'm having this conversation with myself. It's like, I don't know what the hell I want to go to this garage sale for. It's like I have so much crap, I should be having the garage sale myself, and it's
Right.
going on and on and on. Well, I get to the garage sale. There wasn't parking right in front of the house. I had to go down the street about 3 houses, park the car. I'm still having that conversation. It's like, okay, I go in there. I'm humoring my guides. I'm like, yeah, I'm here. Okay. I'm looking around. I come out. And when I came out to go back to the car, the second house down from the garage sale, I was the third house where I parked. The lady pulled out and she said, oh my God, Dolores, I haven't seen you forever. It was actually one of my old clients. She said, oh my God, I wanted to get in touch with you because there's a professor at the California Institute of Human Sciences, which is down the street from where I live, that wanted to meet you because she wants to connect with you and, talk to you about whatever. And I said, great. So the connection was made, and I got to speak at that and teach a class at that institution with her. And what I also asked her, I said, so what do you do during the summer? She said, oh, I go to, she's from the East Coast. She's over there. I go to Omega Institute in the summer, and I'm in charge of their program. I said, oh, really? Well, she didn't know this, but it was on my bucket list to speak at Omega Institute. So guess where I spoke? I mean, and it was effortless. So that's a story that I share with you about that divine download, and you just kind of do things. You follow that lead, even though sometimes you go kicking and screaming. But
Yeah.
I'm glad I followed that because it was a complete circle with that.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I invite people just to try that. It's going to be difficult for people if you've been in motion for a very long time to stop. And I think we've witnessed this with COVID happening in the grand reset, where the 2 weeks where everybody was on house arrest. Basically, this was stopping the doing mobile, and some people just didn't know how to handle it because they've been in motion and they know nothing different.
Right.
And they were trying to distract themselves. I need to go out. No, this is where you need to be with you. But they didn't know how to have a relationship with themselves because they've been in motion and distracting themselves.
Right.
Or maybe by being by themselves, they were afraid that they were going to find out some stuff about themselves. All, different themes and variations of what happened with people.
Yeah. Now, Dolores, you mentioned something in your conversation here a moment ago about finding clarity. I think you said finding clarity in the chaos or something like that.
Finding
And
certainty in an uncertain world. Yeah.
yeah, that's what it was. Say a little bit more about that and how that shows up in your life. I mean, you gave an example of following your instinct to go to this garage sale, but say a little bit more about this and how other people can benefit from it.
Sometimes we look at what's happening around us and we think that this is who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And yes, it could be who you are if you choose to go there. I think what has really happened over the last several decades, and I think, we saw the first of this happening in 2008 when the financial industry collapsed.
Right.
Okay. Everybody, you could bet your paycheck up until 2008 when that happened, that things are going to happen like this. And then all of a sudden 2008 came and the rug came out and there was so much chaos and uncertainty. And I don't think anything has been certain since then, to be perfectly honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that was a wake-up call for humanity to start coming within themselves, taking the time to connect with themselves, because we have that wisdom, that innate knowledge that we are, that is our sovereign beingness, that we need to reconnect with. And how do you do that? Like I was saying, just do some type of mindful activity. Keep it simple. When you look at our ancestors, I know my grandmother used to crochet and make make lace and other stuff. That generation and the generations before, that was their mindful activity, believe it or not.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like anything you could do, crafts, artistic thing that you could channel yourself and just get lost in it. It might even be doing jigsaw puzzles. I mean, you could get
Right.
lost doing that for hours. But
Right.
it's like time just stands still basically, and it's actually hours have gone by. So that's when you know you're in the present moment.
Right. Yeah. There's a whole theory about this idea of dedicated focus
Hmm.
that talks about that very subject. When you're in the zone,
Yep.
athletes experience this, and you don't have to be doing. Let me rephrase this: you can be present no matter what you are doing if
Yep.
you choose.
Yep.
So, for example, if you wanna go ride a motorcycle, well, ride the motorcycle on a dirt road up in the bush somewhere. That'll get you present.
Hmm.
Or same thing if you ride your bike, or anything that skiing. There's a good example. You got to
Yep.
pay attention to what you're doing when you're skiing. If you don't, you can get injured.
Well,
You
not
know?
only that too, driving a car. How many people, I mean, for me, love road trips because this is where I totally zone out and I get some great information.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like and it could be with music, it could be anything that gets you fully present in the present moment.
Right,
And I feel that when you're in the present moment, it's like this is where magic happens because you are right there, and it's like it's an energy, and things flow to you, and it's allowing that flow to come to you, and without you doing the pushback or putting the brakes on or digging your heels in. It's just allowing things to come. Now, getting back to being certain in an uncertain world, it's just like it's about connecting with that inner wisdom, because that little voice inside of you, no matter what's going on in the world, will be your guidance. It's your barometer.
right,
It's your North Star, if you want to call it that. If you listen to that and are brave and courageous and follow that, magic's going to happen in your world. And yes, you know what? It may not be in alignment with what's going on around, but this is your truth for you.
exactly right.
It doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. This is about being true to self.
Right,
And you know what? Getting back to, the whole COVID thing, if it's your truth not to get vaccinated, God bless. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person or whatever. You're honoring yourself. If you choose to get vaccinated, great. You're honoring yourself. But don't project your stuff onto somebody else,
exactly
because
right.
this is your stuff, your life, your creation.
Right,
And, you know, it's sovereign. You need to own it as yours and don't give your power away.
right.
Just,
Well, this is all really amazing and beautiful stuff, and yes, it is in a sense magical. Because as you were saying, the more you can get into being mode as opposed to doing mode and staying present to the truth of who you are, the more you can reconnect to that central core essence of who you really are, that spiritual being that happens to be having a human experience. And it
and
is
David,
that soul, that spirit, that essence that is always calm and loving and a positive in life. It's your ego mind that creates the chaos in the world. So
well,
if you want to go and spend that time in your head and the chaos, by all means go ahead and do that. But make sure that you bring yourself back to that place of stress-free love and health and magic. That's what I would really encourage people to say.
David, sorry, I was interjecting while you were talking. Forgive me.
No problem.
I wanted to add this one piece too: discernment. When
Yeah,
you're in your truth of who you are, you're trusting your intuition. You're trusting your discernment too. This is where you
exactly.
get discernment. And so, I want to speak about this a little bit because I think that this is an important thing. We're in a very spiritual community with a lot of healers and stuff like that. And it's just like sometimes people look at the shiny baubles and stuff like that. I invite people to come in and trust their inner wisdom and their intuition and ask for spiritual discernment when they work with anybody, not just in the spiritual community or the healing community, but just in their life, so
In
you
general,
make the right
yeah.
choices for yourself.
Beautiful. Yeah.
That's important.
So, yeah, beautiful, Dolores. Again, another amazing conversation, and this hour has flown by. No surprise for me at all, because that's kind of how we flow here.
That's the way you
Before I
flow.
close out, though, I just want to give you a couple of minutes to, if you have any final words you'd like to share with people, and talk a little bit about the link that you dropped in the chat.
Sure. I just want to remind people just to be kind to themselves, because we're all experiencing a lot of different things, and it's going to show up for a lot of different ways and means for people. And, just be brave and courageous as you move on. And just remember that you're not alone. You are more loved and appreciated and honored than you know. You just have to allow yourself to receive that. I left a link for people, and it is for a guided meditation to be in the present moment. And the link is drdoloresfazzino.com/free-video. And you could sign up and receive that. It's about a 7-minute video that's video meditation that's very good at getting you grounded in the present moment. And if you've never had that experience, I invite you to experience it, because you will feel the difference. And lastly, I have a video podcast that I just started beginning of December 2022. We're in the 8th episode, and it's called Healing in Ways You Never Thought Possible. And starting in March, I'm going to probably be having guests appear twice a month who've had healing experiences that were, out of the box, not the traditional medical, or it could be medical, but medical, alternative, spiritual, emotional, physical, dimensional healings and stuff like that, because I feel it's really important that people realize that there's more way to heal than just our physical body. So with that being in mind, David, thank you so very much for the honor of coming back and being able to share with the audience. It's been a divine pleasure.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you, Dolores, for being here. It's always amazing having a conversation with you. I love how we just kind of flow, and it's really very, very illuminating and enlightening. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And I want to thank all of you for watching today's program. And I'd like to remind you that you can catch the recordings of this and all my other previous shows on my website at lifemasterytv.com, life-mastery-tv.com. I also would like to just invite you to remember to practice my life mastery mantra every day. It's kind of very much in alignment with what we've been talking about today, especially about presence and so forth. But if you can say this to yourself every day, even a couple of times a day, it would be great. It goes like this. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So thank you all for being here. My name is David McLeod, your life mastery coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. And I'll see you again here next time on Life Mastery TV. Bye-bye.